we're walking through this. Summer gets a little weird and crazy, and it feels odd. I don't know how you guys feel, but it feels odd to be May 31st and be on summer vacation for over a week now. I'm like, it just throws everything off. So as we were kind of processing through this, I was like, okay, let's really talk through what does a season change feel like? I don't know how you grew up with season changes. I'm one of those. I think everything deserves its own season. Like, for example, and if you're this person, I'm sorry, you're going to feel a little called out, and it is what it is. So, but those of you who are like, man, I want to put my Christmas tree up in October. I'm like, no, that should be like penalized with prison time or something. Like everything deserves a season. I love seasons. I love like being able to wear different, clothes and having different, styles and stuff. But also, at some point, I get tired of that season. I'm like, I'm over it, and I'm ready to move on to the next one. And so, like, summer was one of those things for me. Growing up in Florida, I love summer most of the time. There were some consequences to that in Florida, but it just changed things. It changed attitudes. Do you guys feel like that yet? Like, man, feels a little lighter, feels a little easier. And then this week just kicked my butt, and because everything was just off. But here's the thing. The weather change for you, this probably is true for you, it's true for me. The weather change probably means a season change. Like everything starts to change. It's not only just how you dress, and it's how you approach things. Like summer is one of those things where it just changes the pace of life. Even if your job doesn't really change, you have kids at home, or you're like, oh, this is when we normally take vacation, so you get into that rhythm. For churches, it's the same thing. We've been talking about this a lot with our staff. It's this summer's going to be busy for us, but I've told them, I'm like, it's going to be a busy summer, but just wait, fall's going to be crazy. And they're like, thanks, ? And I was like, so get your rest like in June, because after that, you won't rest at all. You won't sleep, and or anything. And they're like, okay. But growing up in Florida, this is what summer meant for us. It meant gridlock traffic season. Like, I grew up in Orlando, and I'll be real. Like, I'm sorry if you love Disney. We hated Disney because of this. Like, you can't get anywhere. You can't get anywhere now in Orlando, but especially during summer. It means rude tourists. Like, I don't know what it is. They're like, they come into, Orlando, and they just get everyone. My wife tells me this all the time. She's like, the moment we cross the Florida border, you become an animal. I'm like, I know, because of this. And then for us, it was the life of 1,000 blazing suns. It was a whole different heat in the summer. Especially in Orlando, we would do 2-a-days for football, which means you get to practice twice because your coach loves you so much. And we would do like working out like in the weight room and then sprints, and then we'd come back after lunch, which, by the way, you can't really eat breakfast because you're going to throw up eggs. I'm just letting you know that. And then you don't really eat a whole lot of lunch because you're going to throw that up because really you couldn't hit, so you're just wearing pads and in the middle of 100-degree weather, just sweating. And so that's what this meant. This is also what summer meant in Florida. It meant the start of hurricane season, which, by the way, Floridians are crazy. We just got used to it, and we're like, if it's not a category 4 or more, we don't really care. And I know you're like, that's kind of crazy, because I know the hurricane that came through here. Like, it just devastated things, right? But like we were just so used to this, and we just knew like this is what these seasons brought. So this is the question as we really get started with this, and I want you to really think through this right now, is what has the seasons in your life, like, what have they brought to you, and what happens when those seasons change? Like, what are those storms bringing for you? So for us, like the hurricane season, that was a storm that we had to figure out how to navigate. I remember this. I was dating my now wife, so it's good that worked out. But, we got hit in Orlando by 5 hurricanes. That one season. It was crazy. But it's just like, okay, cool, another one's coming, buckle down. But you know what my favorite thing about these hurricanes were? The storms. And you'll understand this if you've lived through it. It's the eye of the hurricane. Because in the craziness and the wind that is going, then the eye hits, and you literally can walk out, and it's just peaceful. You're like, this is weird. And then it's going to be another 3 hours because you got the backside of the hurricane coming through. But like, isn't that kind of how life hits sometimes too? Like, you feel this crazy hit of a storm in your life, and then you have to navigate the calm season of it. And then sometimes there's a back-end storm with that too. I remember, man, when we became parents, Chloe is an incredible girl, She's now becoming like a woman, which is weird to say. You know, she'll be 16 this upcoming year. And so she's got extreme ADHD, and that's from my side of the family. You know, you're welcome. And what's really difficult to navigate is when you're a new parent and you have a neurodivergent kid, and you just feel like you're a bad parent because nothing that everyone is telling you is working. I remember those storms and those seasons, and we weren't ready for them. There was nothing to allow us to be ready for those seasons. And no matter how hard we tried, and no matter how much like we just loved her relentlessly, it's like that storm just never relented. And you just start to question who you are as a parent. You question your identity. And here's the thing that they don't tell you about those storms is when those storms hit and you're not quite ready to navigate them, you can be left in a place of just devastation. And it doesn't have to be with your kid. It can be life. I mean, we've all felt that, right? Like, and this is kind of the results from them. Some storms for us, some storms we can wait through, right? Like we can wait those storms out. One of my favorite things to do, and you've got to be careful in Georgia because like we were in Noonan when the tornadoes came through, and literally like, you know, it was 2 neighborhoods over. We could hear like the train sound of that tornado coming through, just devastating families. But sometimes I love just to sit on the porch and just wait the storm out and just watch it. Unfortunately, we've had to do that a lot recently this week. But, you know, like whether it's a real storm or your life, like sometimes the storms you just have to wait out, right? You're like, man, this is tough. But like you just know, like I just get to that next season. And you kind of trick yourself a little bit. We did that as a church. We're like, man, when we get to summer, it's going to cool down. And it did for a day. It was really nice for one day after we had that day off. And then Tuesday was really good. And then Wednesday, we got hit with more storms, right? And we're like, oh, we get to wait this one out now. Some storms, you get to navigate your way through it. Those are really difficult because sometimes you can navigate it with other people around you that have helped you through storms. And sometimes, like my wife and I, you're just forced to be in it and figure it out. I was having this conversation with a family a couple weeks ago. I wish there were support groups and understandings of how to parent kids that they're not bad kids, right? They just need a different style of parenting, and I wish we would have known that because it would have helped us navigate that storm way cleaner, and I wouldn't be making up for things today that I just navigated poorly back then. You know, in some storms for you, like they bring you to the point of breaking, and those are the hard ones. Those are the difficult ones because you get to a place where you're not sure that you can pull yourself out. Been very honest about this, and I'm going to briefly touch on this, but if you've been around, you'll know this. If you haven't, I'm going to catch you up. But there was a season before coming here that, it was so volatile in my life, because when people aren't medicated correctly for ADHD and they're living that out in negative forms, they don't even know it. And it's like a hurricane around them, and they're just devastating everything to the point where I had zero relationship with my oldest daughter. And consequently, because I was a pastor, she had zero desire to have a relationship with Jesus because she saw her dad, who was navigating his storm very poorly, who claimed to love Jesus but wasn't living that out. My youngest, we have this conversation still today. She goes, I've had to learn, you're not the dad that you used to be, and that's good. I was like, whew, that hurts. But it's good, right? Because, that breaking point didn't break. And let me just tell you, if you're there, I just want you to know that, there's a group of people that love you, and they want so much more for you. And it's okay to be honest in that. Because, for me, the breaking point, I had a plan to hurt myself and to do things, and by the grace of God, literally, I didn't. And the people that were supposed to protect me in that season didn't. And that's kind of what we're wrapping all this into is even when the things that are there to protect you that don't, God still does have a plan. Because for a lot of us, the storm may have ended, right? But it does leave a forwarding address inside of you. And what I mean by this, this is what we're navigating with our girls. And again, God's been so good. I've got such a good, strong relationship with my daughter, and she loves Jesus relentlessly today. But what we're navigating is like you can't undo the past. You can't undo the storms. But you can use those storms to create a passageway forward, not only for yourself, but for other people, right? So like that's what we're going to really walk through. And if you have your Bibles, you can turn to Acts chapter 27 if you want. We'll be there here in a second. But this is the story of Paul, and I want to set it up and frame it, and we'll hit a few more points here in a second. But Paul was this guy who loved the religion of following God. And then Jesus has this interaction with him in his life and just radically shifts his life. Then Paul becomes on fire for God. And then his life mission is to make everyone else see what he saw. So he literally, his life mission is to help people see Jesus. Because he understood those storms, those difficulties, those moments that could have left him devastated. By the grace of God, he was able to navigate it into something incredible. So for you, there's a story, just like Paul. Like there's a story that we start telling ourselves when a hard season won't let up. And I'm sure Paul was here. It's like, maybe this is just life right now, because we're gonna read through that here in a second. And if you've said this, I want you to know, like, you're not alone. Like if you've sat in this moment and it's like, well, this is just how it is. Like we felt this when we were navigating like how to be new parents, and you have a kid that you didn't even know what they needed, and you're like, oh, this is just our life. And you just figure out like life can be so much fuller and better than you could have ever imagined when you just relent and allow God to move in it. And I want you to know, like, you can arrive at the destination. Hit that next one for me. Like, you can arrive at that destination and still be living like your journey that almost broke you. So like some of you, myself included, some of us are still living in this place that we got through it, but there's still pieces of it that almost broke us, and we're living like that. Like, just this week was one of the first times, like, there was something unexpected that happened, and for the first time in years, I didn't just, like, pull in. I went, okay, God, you've had us. What's next? This was the first time probably in 5 or 6 years that I've been able to do that. And I'm just going to let you know, like, all of us get into these places where we're still living in the remnants of what happened. See, as I was navigating this, my life paralleled Houston's kind of life in this. God was navigating these different storms, and there was always a promise underneath it all. But when the promise isn't quite there in front of you, you start to lose sight of the destination. And it's just been beautiful to see God bring it all to fruition at the same time. That's my hope for you as we navigate this. So we have to stop saying, this happened to me, and we need to start saying, that is me. Like, we have to stop saying, like, hey, that happened to me, and go, this is just who I am in spite of that, and God's going to release that. And the last thing for you is the storm of your season is never the foundation of who you are. That's the sticky statement today. The storm of your season is never the foundation of who you are. So if you're struggling, this is all identity. If you're struggling, like, all these things that have happened to me, they just become a part of who you are. They don't have to be. So Paul is on this journey to Rome. He's helped establish the church with Peter. So Peter established the church in and around Israel and in Jerusalem. Paul is taking the church all the way through Asia Minor, technically, I guess, in Europe. And so he's establishing the church to what we call the Gentiles. These are people who didn't grow up as Jewish people. And so he's in the middle of the water on a boat. And so I just want to get this in your head. When I think about this, I'm like, oh, okay, because this is like 2,000 years ago. They're probably like on a little fishing vessel. No. This is one of the biggest cargo ships of that time. Almost 300 people would have been on this ship, and they would have all been workers along with cargo. And so this is a big deal. And so as Paul is going on this, he gets this vision from it says an angel of the Lord. It's probably Jesus. But this is what it says, Acts chapter 27 and verse 23. It says, for the last night, an angel of the God, probably Jesus, to whom I belong and whom I serve, stood beside me. So I want you to know, like, we're going to talk about this part, and then we're going to go back a couple verses. So Paul is talking to different people in the middle of the storm, and he's saying, listen, God gave me a vision. This is the thing, is like, I think if we position ourselves, God will give every single one of us a vision. Maybe it's not like this. I've been like very outspoken about this. God doesn't usually speak to me like this. Like I get these weird like, hey, God pushes me towards decisions. Lately, this is kind of how God's been speaking to me, which is kind of weird, by the way, because you feel a little crazy at times. You're like, God or not, and it's been crazy because, in the Bible it says, test me and know my ways. And we have, and God has come through exactly how he has said. So like this can feel daunting, it can feel weird, but let me tell you, like if you're sitting here going, I don't know if God speaks to me, let me just reassure you, God, I think today speaks to all of us if we're listening. This is the point. So this is verse 24, this is the actual statement that he says. And he said, don't be afraid, Paul, for you will surely stand trial before Caesar. So he's going to Rome to go to jail. Is what's happening. Which, by the way, this is not all that encouraging. He's like, you will get there. Don't worry. It's like, oh, cool. I'm going to go to trial. He goes, what's more, God in his goodness has granted safety to everyone sailing with you. That's an important piece. So he has this vision from God before he even gets on the boat. And he goes, hey, you're going to get to your destination. Let me break this down because you can't really read through this. What he's saying is, it's probably not going to be clean. It's probably not going to be easy. But I'm going to get you there, and that is my promise. I think a lot of times we get into this place with God where we go, hey, God, I want it nice, I want it neat, I want it easy. And then, like, I feel good, right? It's like, that's not the promise. And what the promise was, like, hey, I'm going to get you to where I called you to, and everyone with you is going to hold to that promise. It's going to be safely, but it never in this did he say it was going to be easy. The promise doesn't eliminate, hit the next one for me. The promise doesn't eliminate the pressure. The storm becomes a variable, not the verdict. Like, I want you to notice, like, the promise doesn't mean, like, the pressure of the moment is gone. Like, if you're in the middle of the pressure, it's probably exactly where you need to be with God. Like, we don't want to hear that, but that's true. Because that pressure is what creates the perseverance. The pressure is what is the refining moments. The pressure is what pushes you from point A to point B. Like, we don't want to hear this piece, but like, this is true. The promise doesn't eliminate the pressure. And more importantly, the storm isn't the verdict. It's not the final piece of it, but it is a variable to get there. And what I mean by that is, like, as we tracked our life and what God was doing, he was positioning us for this time, for this season, for right now. And I'll be honest, like, there's a lot of times I sit here and I'm like, God, should I be a pastor or should I be leading a church? And not in a, like, my life is so, sometimes it is messed up, and that's my own doing, right? But you just feel so unqualified. But the whole time God is going like, hey, the promise was there. The pressure through your life created the variables for the final verdict. And I'm going to tell you, like, if you're feeling it right now, just maybe God is pushing some things in your life to push you to where he needs to get you. That storm has purpose. And again, we don't want to hear that, but there's a lot of truth in that. So we'll back up a few verses. This is Acts chapter 27, verse 20, and this is where it all started. It says, the terrible storm, by the way, most people think this was a horrendous hurricane that happened. The terrible storm raged for many days, blotting out the sun and the stars. Could you imagine, like, such a horrendous storm that you look up and it's just darkness? That's what they're experiencing in the middle of the ocean. I'm not a bad swimmer. I'm not a great one. And so I can imagine the panic that would be like someone like me, like, be like, oh, if we're going under, it's like the Titanic. There was room on the door. He could have been on the door with her, right? Like, you look at that and you're like, man, I'm grabbing something, right? And so, like, it raged for many days. There's blotting out of the sun and the stars, and until at last, all what was gone? All hope was gone. That's important to read because Paul gets this vision from God before the storm hits. And in the middle of the storm, everyone, all hope was gone. So even Paul is sitting there going, I don't think we're going to make it. Isn't that crazy? Like God can give you this promise sometimes, and you sit there and you're like, I know what you've promised, I know that what you've said, and I'm still not sure we're going to get to the destination. I would imagine for the 40 people that showed up in the warehouse, this was probably part of it, right? Like, I'm not sure we're going to make it. We're going to throw everything at it. We're going to hire this guy. Good luck. You know, like that's probably what everyone's kind of thinking. In fact, like I've shared this as like one of my mentors when he came and looked at the warehouse, he's like, why were you this angry that you came here, right? Like all hope was gone, right? And I almost lost all hope even getting into this building because of just dealing with the logistics of things. It's like, holy cow. But to be in a place where God has promised you to be on the other side and you've completely lost hope. Even the great people of faith have had these moments. So if you're sitting there and you feel such a failure with your faith, like just know like this is normal. Because we don't always see the other side of what that storm holds. And for days, they were experiencing this whole experience of the storm. Like maybe for you, it's been months of experiencing the storm or years of experiencing the storm, or probably feels like decades at times of experiencing the storm. So like if you're losing hope, this is normal. So they're in the middle of it, they're feeling it, and in the middle, like verse 23, we talked about that, like Paul goes, hey, by the way, I have this vision, we're all going to survive. And I'm sure they want to punch Paul in this moment, like we're dying, dude. Like, so we're going to jump to verse 41, because this is where it gets exciting, ready? But they hit a shoal and ran the ship aground too soon. So I don't know anything about sailing, but this seems like super important not to do. I guess they cut off all the anchors and left them in the sea. Then they lowered the rudders, raised the foresail, and headed towards the shore. So like everything is kind of eclipsing to this moment where they're going to bring it up. And then that next one. But then they hit, verse 41, they hit a shoal and ran the ship aground too soon. The bow of the ship stuck fast, while the stern was repeatedly smashing by the force of the waves and began to break apart. Like, have you felt this in your life? Like the force of life is just hitting so hard that everything feels like it's breaking apart. This is where they were. And could you imagine the terror and the feelings of like, this is it? See, hard seasons are an environment. Like hard seasons for your life are an environment, and too many times we try to make it an identity. Like, this moment for them was a moment. But in that moment, it became an identity. It became everything that they wore. And it's so easy for hard moments to become that in our lives. And I'm just going to tell you, like, if you're sitting in the middle of a storm, because you're either in a storm, about to go into a storm, or coming out of a storm. Like, there's no other moments, right? Like, storms are inevitable. I'm telling you, when you get there, it's an environment, it's a moment, it's not your identity. I think that's where we miss it. In fact, you know, this is kind of the ownership that Paul's taken with it. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 11. I want you guys to see what Paul had endured. It says, I've been, 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. This is, when we read the beating of Jesus, this is what he received. This is the significance of it. Their thoughts were if we hit someone 40 times, it could have the potential to kill them. And by law, if they hit 41, then the person doing the lashes got hit those times. So it was like we can hit you 39, even 40, but if we hit 41, that's too much, right? So 5 times he received 39 lashes. And so this was typically done by like rods or sticks, or in Jesus' case, the cat of nine tails, which was 1 whip and 9 strings, cords coming off of it with like glass or bone that would be designed to rip into the skin and pull it apart. Like, we don't know what exactly he received, but like, this is intense. 3 times I was beaten with rods. That feels pleasant, right? Once I was pelted with stones. Like, I love that he defined these moments. He's like, I was whipped, beaten with rods, but also hit with stones. And to a point, he got stoned, left for dead, and then walked right back into the city that stoned him. So that was great, right? 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open seas. Hit the next one for me. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in dangers from fellow Jews, in dangers from the Gentiles, and dangers in the city, and dangers in the country, dangers at sea, and danger from false believers. At this point, you might go, maybe it's not everyone else, maybe it's you. I don't know, And but what Paul is putting up here is a resume, and I'm like, this is not the resume anyone would want. But what he's showing is like, hey, I've experienced things that no one else would want to experience. And I say all that to say this. This is verse 27. He says, I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst, and I have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked, which I love that he just puts that in there. By the way, I ran around naked a few times. I'm like, okay, cool, thanks for that. He says, but all of that, I face the daily pressures of the concerns for who? All the churches. Wait. Let's go back. Yeah, you've been beaten, you've been whipped, you've been stoned, you've been shipwrecked, you've gone without food, you're on the run, and your concern is for the churches? Like, he understands that the storm is just a storm, that it's not the result. Maybe another way to say is that the pressure isn't evidence that the promise failed. Like, he looks at this and goes like, I would look at Paul and go, maybe you should just give up, man. He's like, nah, just keep going because God wants everything from me. And I want to give him everything. Pressure is actually evidence that the promise is about to become the only thing standing. And I would imagine at some point that promise hit Paul square in the head where he's in the middle of the water and he goes, oh yeah, we're going to survive this. I just want you to know, like, if you're in the middle of it, you're going to survive it. And why do I know that? Because Paul, after everything that he's gone through, this is what he says. He says, with all of that happening, my grace is what God told him. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness. Why? So that the power of Christ may rest on me. I know it's not about the storm. I know that the promise is after. And I know that if I just keep moving towards what he's called me to, I will get there. And I just want you to know, if you're feeling that right now, I want you to know like that the season will end. It is not your identity. And as Paul would say, this is why. For Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and difficulties. For when I am weak, who's strong? I am strong for God. Hard seasons are an environment, not an identity. And this is what's really hard. I think we get false teaching sometimes. I've heard churches preach on this, and it's just wrong. It says this actually in the Bible, but this is where it gets misconstrued. God will never give you more than you can handle. That's Second Opinions 1:9. Churches preach on this. I want you guys to know that. Churches preach this false doctrine, like God's not going to give you more than you can handle, and that's just a lie. He's going to give you more than you can handle because that's where you start relying on him. Because that's the only way to make it through. In fact, this is what it really says. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 says, and God is faithful and will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. Not pushed beyond what you can bear, tempted. Because his delight is not into tripping you up. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. It's all about enduring to the promise and not failing in the middle of the storm. Like, the other thing I would caution you with is a caution with the calm. Like, we had this full weekend off. We had Sunday off, which is like our entire staff was like, whoa, this season's been tough. So they're so grateful to get like a rest in the moment. So, we had Sunday off and then Monday off, and we're like, okay, we feel great. Tuesday was awesome. And I said Wednesday hit another storm. It's like, okay, we're back in it, right? Like, I think a lot of times the calm can create a comfort in your life, and it stops you from moving forward. You get to that season. It's like getting into the summer. You're like, oh, I can relax. It's like while you're relaxing, you're not ready for what's coming. And as you're relaxing, you stop doing the things that got you there. It's like when you work out and you get to that place of like, oh, I can lift 225 because you get the bar and the 245s and you feel really good, right? And then you're like, I hit it, I'm good. And you stop like lifting for 2 weeks and you're back to square one. Like that calm in your relationship with God, like yes, there is comfort in that calm, but man, it's going to stop you from moving forward. So if your idea is to stop feeling like the pressure, you're going for the wrong thing. Like the right thing to do is to trust the promise. Like if we trust the promise that God never promised that it's going to be easy. Like you notice like when he came to Paul, he didn't say, hey, by the way, you're going to survive this storm. It's going to be nice. It's like maybe like this little calm thing and like the ship's just going to run out of gas and so you just have to swim a little bit. It's going to be fine. It's just a nice little swim. No. He said, I will allow you to survive. That's all he promised. And he promises that it will have a purpose. And you might be sitting there going like, what's the purpose? Not this world. Not what we get here. But from what we get out of salvation. Now that's not to say like life should be miserable. I'm not preaching that. But we have to stop trying to pursue pleasure and start pursuing purpose. See, hard seasons are an environment, not an identity. So as you're going through this season, I want you to know, like, whether it's your life, whether it's a season with kids, whether it's work, whether it's a season of like just uncertainty, I want you to know like the season is tough, but it always has a purpose. And that season is just an environment. It doesn't have to be your identity. Too many of us try to create this identity under a season. Well, do you know what just happened to me? It's like, I do, but like, do you know what God did for you? Like, can you believe that this person like did this to me? I get it sucks, but like, can you imagine what God could do through that? Like, can I give you like this? I told you guys I had plans, very selfish plans to end things. And in that season, God put me in front of so many men that had the same plans that I literally had to dig myself out of that hole. Like I said, the people that were supposed to protect me didn't. So I had to figure out how to dig myself out, and God allowed me to just walk through that season with so many other men that were experiencing this same thing. And I got to tell them, like, this is an environment, this is a season, this is a moment, it's not your identity. Like, the feelings that you're feeling right now, they're real, but they're not who you are. And the God of the universe, who put everything together and promises tomorrow, has a purpose for you too. So whatever your season is, whatever shipwreck moment, breakdown moment you're feeling, I think God hurts with you. And he didn't promise that it would be easy, but he did promise that you would make it to the other side. So with that being said, I want you guys to know, like, it's a little heavy going into the summer. You're like, oh, wow, we got like serious into the summer. I get that. But I also want you to know, like, we have a church and a group of people here that want to love on you. So if you're in that season, I just want you to know, like, you can come talk to me, you can talk to our staff. Like, we want you to know that you're not in it alone and that you're loved. So I would love to pray for you. God, we're just so grateful. And seasons like this, great ones, tough ones, God, when we're coming into the storm, we're going through the storm, or we're coming out of it, God, that we just know that you're always with us, even if we can't see the destination. And God, I pray that whatever season people are in today, but maybe it's a great season, God, that they can just take great joy in the fact that you've protected them to this point. But those of us, God, that are just struggling through moments, I pray that you just help us realize that there's a plan and there's a purpose. And that you love us exactly where we're at. You just love us way too much to leave us right there, God. We give all these things to you. In your name we pray. Amen.